Hello, and welcome to my channel. Try This as a series breaking down a certain game or playstyle of a game. Today we're going to be talking Commander and breaking down Raphael, Fiendish Savior. The video is broken down in the chapters, which you can find in the description or in the timeline. I'll be briefly covering Raphael, then cover some win conditions and how we'll get there. I'll cover some mana base and card draw strategies. I'll discuss other synergistic cards in the deck and why I think they'll help. I'll cover some other cards I cut from my example list, why they didn't fit my list but they might fit yours. And finally, I'll move on to some budget suggestions for the deck. If you enjoy this content, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. It really helps other viewers discover the content I produce and is a great way to show support. With that said, let's dive in. Raphael is a 4/4 Devil Noble with flying that costs 3 black-red. He gives other demons, devils, imps, and tieflings you control +1/+1 and lifelink. Also, at the beginning of each end step, if a creature card was put into your graveyard from anywhere this turn, create a 1/1 red devil creature token with when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. I think Raphael is a solid commander of any of the tribes he provides a buff to. This makes him a very flexible creature leading your deck, as many good utility creatures fall under these creature types. Even if we're focusing on a specific tribe, we can splash into one of the other 3 to still get the buff and extra lifelink. We could even bypass tribal altogether and just restrict our deck to demons, devils, imps, and tieflings to build a flexible hybrid list. His token generation effect isn't as flashy as the buff, but it's still nice all the same. It triggers off discard effects and mill as well to essentially make a 2/2 with lifelink that can ping something when it dies. I'm going to be focusing on the buff and tribal build for my video and example list, but this is a nice bonus ability to have all the same. The tribe I'm going to build around is demons, but I'm splashing in some other creature types as well. I've never built a demon tribal list before and it's felt like a great opportunity to explore that. It was very interesting to build around, as demons, like angels and dragons, are often just very scary creatures to throw onto the field. It really makes you feel like you're getting your mana's worth when casting creatures, and it's satisfying to play into. Many demons are very large creatures that can provide huge threats for our opponents to deal with. We could probably win the game with combat damage using cards like Razaketh and Flipped Elbrus. However, I think jamming in a handful of alternate ways to win the game really fits the demon theme. Starting off, I have Master of Cruelties, who not only fits the tribe but can instantly kill opponents if he swings out unblocked. So if he's in our opening hand, we could reliably get him out ahead of curve to start threatening the win. It wouldn't be a demon deck without Liliana's Contract as an alternate win condition. This is not only a huge flavor win, but shouldn't be too difficult to pull off. Including the Binding Blade, we have access to 19 demons in this deck, and we only need 4 on field to win with this card. I'm running an Infinite Combo and Sanguine Bond and Exquisite Blood. If you aren't sure how this works, basically once an opponent is damaged or we gain life, these 2 cards start a feedback loop into each other until all of our opponents are dead. If you aren't a fan of combos like this one, then I would still suggest running Sanguine Bond, as it synergizes with all the life gain we'll get throughout the game. I'm running Revel in Riches as another single alternate win condition. There are only 2 cards including this that generate treasures for us, but I think it will likely generate all the treasures we need. Most of the demons in this list are pretty scary to get hit with, so it's likely our opponents will chump block, giving us treasures. You could also just board wipe while it's out to generate what we need. Last is Aetherflux Reservoir. This isn't exactly a storm deck, so we wouldn't be generating the kind of life we normally would with this card. However, our commander giving an anthem and lifelink to most of our creature base should get us far above 50 so we can laser beam our opponents. Starting off is the auto includes in Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, and Thematic Compass. I've always found Thematic Compass to be a reliable card at any point in the game. It can help ensure land drops in early to mid game and then flip into a strictly better Maze of It to protect us from Voltron commanders and other problem creatures. I'm running some additional classics in Mind Stone and Commander Sphere as cheap mana rocks that can also draw us cards. There isn't a ton of card draw in this deck, so these rocks will help supplement some if we need it. Solemn Simulacrum and Burnished Heart are also here to fetch us some basics to field. The Sad Robot can also draw us a card. With both being creatures, they can also generate devils for us if Raphael is out. Iron Mirror and Leaden Mirror are here as cheap mana dorks being cast in early game as simple mana dorks for our colors. The Mirror cycle is really reliable for colors that don't have access to green. Along with them is Ornithopter Paradise and Thran Dynamo. Many of our demons are expensive to cast, and Thran Dynamo will propel our mana base forward substantially. Herald's Horn provides us with a cost reduction for our demons and potentially gives us card advantage throughout the game. Ashnod's Altar will generate some extra mana for us. We can sacrifice some of our extra creatures like the Sad Robot or the tokens our commander creates to generate some mana for something else. Sword of Hearth and Home is quickly becoming one of my favorite equipment cards. It gives us protection from 2 colors outside our color identity, flickers one of our creatures if we want, and can fetch us some untapped basics to field. Last is Dockside Extortionist, which is a great target to flicker with the sword. Dockside's effectiveness can vary, but it's normally a reliable card to make a substantial amount of mana. Starting off is Harvester of Souls, which fits into our tribe and can potentially draw us a ton of cards. This card also sees our opponent's creatures dying and works with non-token creatures also. Next is Mask of Memory. With most of our demons having flying along with our commander, it should be a reliable equipment in this deck. Village Rites is a great card that allows us to sacrifice something to trigger our commander's ability. Our commander looks for creatures dying at each end step, allowing us to utilize this at instant speed. War Room and Gaia Reach Sanitarium are both great lands we can sink extra mana into for cards. With all the life we'll be gaining throughout the game, paying for War Room shouldn't be a problem. These two lands are nice includes for most lists that struggle with card draw. Again, Liliana's Contract is here, which can give us cards in addition to setting up for the win. This and other cards previously mentioned like Mindstone will help supplement some of the card draw we're missing in this deck. There are quite a few tutor effects I'll cover in the next section to help, so we shouldn't be struggling to get card advantage in this deck. I'm running a few tutor effects in this deck. I normally add demonic and vampiric tutors in my list if they're in black. For power reasons, I normally just keep it to these two, but there are several demons that provide additional tutor effects. Bloodspeaker and Burning Ruin Demon are two cards that can tutor for other things in our deck. Bloodspeaker is a tutor we can recur over and over again while playing into our commander's end step trigger. The demon can tutor for multiple win conditions or present a deal for our opponents. This makes it an interesting politic card we can flicker with the sword. Razaketh and Vargoth are two creatures that can tutor for things. Razaketh is an incredibly powerful card, and we can use the tokens our commander generates to tutor for additional things on the following turn. I'm running both Rakdos creatures for cost reduction and a potential one-sided board wipe. Most of our creatures fall into the Showstopper's tribe, so we shouldn't have to worry about losing anything important. If we have the Sword of Hearthenholm out, we can also flicker him to try controlling the board state. Both Ob Nixilis creatures are in this deck as they're each a threat in their own right. We aren't going to really abuse the landfall trigger in Rakdos, but cards like Myriad Landscape and Burnished Heart can give us some burst damage. Unshackled punishes our opponents for searching for cards. This includes ramp cards, so it's likely most of our opponents will be affected by this. The death trigger also sees our opponent's creatures, which could turn them into a massive threat. To help with some removal effects is Demon of Wailing Agonies and Archfiend of Depravity. The Archfiend can be a very effective card in Commander as we'd force our opponents down to just 2 creatures. This can shut down go-wide strategies and value engine decks relying on creatures. Orcus and Reaper of the Abyss can also provide creature removal effects. Orcus is also one of our reanimation effects. As most of our demons are expensive to cast and dangerous while on the field, it's likely we'll draw out our opponent's removal effects or board wipes. We need some reanimation cards to ensure we can get them back at some point, and Orcus is a flexible creature for this that fits our tribe. Reanimate and Animate Dead are 2 more cards that can help us get our demons back to field. Both cards are flexible as we can also take creatures from our opponent's graveyards. I imagine in most cases we'd want to get our own demons back, but it's always nice to have the option of pulling things from any graveyard. Graveshifter and Phyrexian Reclamation are 2 more cards that can put our creatures back into our hands from the yard. Graveshifter having Changeling synergizes with our commander's ability and our alternate win condition in Liliana's Contract. Being an enter the battlefield effect, we can also flicker it with the Sword of Hearthenholm if we happen to have that on the field also. Speaking of Changelings, I'm running Torian Mauler in this deck. This card can be very effective in any list, but with our commander's buff, it can provide us with a massive amount of life gain. Getting this creature out on curve can be incredibly scary for our opponents. In Commander, this sort of effect can really snowball out of control. Albrus and Blade of the Oni are 2 equipment cards that can work well in this deck. The Blade can just be a cheap demon to get out, but we can also turn one of our ramp creatures into a demon if we'd like a larger creature. We could also up the power of one of our other demons, but I think it would be more effective in its creature form as another lifelink creature since many demons are around 5/5 anyway. It would probably just be better to turn Dockside or something like that into a 5/5. Albrus is pretty expensive to cast but should be easy to flip with our commander having flying. The creature it flips into is terrifying and could heal us substantially to play into our other win conditions like Aetherflux Reservoir. I don't normally cover removal cards in my videos. There are so many options in most colors and it really comes down to personal preference and budget. However, I think it's worth shouting out Rakdos Charm in this deck. Exiling graveyards and destroying artifacts is what this card is normally used for, but the final ability is why I'm bringing it up. Since the creatures are what's doing the damage, we're mostly immune to this effect. With Raphael out, most of our creatures would have lifelink to negate the damage done. Against go-wide strategies, this is a pretty effective card that can deal a ton of damage to those opponents. Finally is Mayhem Devil, which honestly just synergizes more with the commander meta at the moment than our deck. You can sacrifice things with Ashnod's Altar and we'll get treasures with Dockside. However, we're not really abusing sacrifice triggers like most Rakdos decks that run this card. It's in here because it sees all the permanents sacrificed by all players and our commander gives it lifelink. With the heavy amount of support Treasures has received over the last couple sets, we'll get plenty of value from this card. It honestly feels like every EDH game I've played recently had at least 15 treasures being cracked throughout the game, so I expect this to be a reliable card. The cutting room floor is where I talk about some cards around or over $10 at the time of recording that I cut from my list for various reasons but are worth mentioning in the run. Though these cards didn't find a home in my list, they might find a home in yours. First off is Urza's Incubator as an additional tribal cost reduction. The costs of demons are sort of all over the place and I thought Herald's Horn would be enough normally. However, there are some very expensive cards like Razaketh and Harvester of Souls, so I feel like it would be a welcome include in this deck. Archfiend of Despair is a famous demon that can be very dangerous and often draws the ire of the whole table. Being able to shut down life gain and have wound reflection on a creature is very scary and is a huge threat. I cut it because I didn't really think I needed it. I would rather have Razaketh to tutor up some win conditions and I didn't want another huge CMC creature to cast. If he ever gets stolen or reanimated from our graveyard, then he shuts down the massive amount of life gain potential we have. With so many Thief commanders coming out recently, especially with one at the head of a precon, I think it's more risky to put him in the deck. He isn't needed for us to win, but all the same is a dangerous demon that fits with our deck. Bitter Blossom would be a nice include if you feel like you need some more creatures in the deck. It doesn't really synergize with our commander, but we should get plenty of life to offset what we'll lose with this card. If you decide to run Maskwood Nexus in this deck, then I think it would make even more sense to run this. Last is Helm of the Host, which can duplicate up our demons or our commander for additional buffs and token generation. I felt I'd always want to spend mana on casting demons instead of investing in this equipment, but it's a really cool card that can double up our threatening creatures. First off is Maskwood Nexus and Rakshasa Debaser as two cards that synergize with each other and the deck. Maskwood turns the rest of our creatures into demons or any of the other creature types that work with Raphael. Most of the creatures in the example list are already a creature type that works with our commander, but Maskwood really helps out cards like Liliana's Contract. The Debaser synergizes with our tribe and pulls out things from graveyards for us. If Maskwood is out, it also turns them into creatures for our tribe. Bloodgift Demon and Doom Whisperer are two more demons that fit with our deck. Getting extra draws and being able to filter our draws would be a welcome include. Doom Whisperer's ability would be offset with the massive amount of life we should be gaining, making it an even more powerful card. Talisman of Indulgence and Strixhaven Stadium are two artifacts that could fit this list. The Stadium is yet another alternate win condition. Even with all the flyers we have, this deck doesn't go very wide, so it would be hard to jam counters onto it while also keeping opponents from hitting us. Rogue's Gloves and Synprodder could likely give us more card draw. I felt like I had enough draw in this deck, but it wouldn't hurt to add some more. Synprodder isn't technically a draw, but since it deals damage and is a devil, we'll heal for whatever card is put into our graveyard. I think this would entice most opponents to just let us get the card. It's one thing to take the damage, but it's another to take it and let you heal. I ended up cutting this card for Graveshifter. I felt like I needed some more reanimation effects, and Graveshifter played into the Liliana's Contract win condition. I think Synprodder would be the first card I'd put back into this list in the future if I cut something else. Karn Wanderer is a solid card that plays into our tribe and can potentially get a ton of keywords. I think there are better demons available for 5 mana, but this is a solid budget card that fits the tribe. I didn't cover every card in this deck or every suggestion I have for Raphael, so if you'd like to see the rest, check out the deck list in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider clicking the like button and subscribing to the channel. Comment below on cards you think synergize well with this commander, and if you have any suggestions for commanders to build in the future. Thank you so much for watching, good luck, and have fun.